a substitute.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks. At this time, the Chair would lay out House Bill 638 and recognize Representative Anchía.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Before Chairman Dutton leaves, I want to single him out because this bill relates to a bill that he pioneered years ago related to compensation for innocent Texans who had been wrongfully imprisoned, and he was a leader on that. And you recall, members, that in 2009 we built upon the Dutton bill with the Tim Cole Act, which entitles a wrongfully convicted Texan to receive a lump sum payment equal to $80,000 for each year incarcerated, and also furnished an ongoing annuity equal to the amount of the lump sum. And Andrea, thank you very much for helping our witnesses get signed in today. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, she's a credit to this committee and was very generous with her time. To date, Texas has exonerated 188 innocent Texans. The average length of time served by the exonerees is about 13.5 years. You're going to be hearing from people today who have served double or more of that amount. And the total number of years served by these individuals is about 1,200 years. For each of these individuals, that amount is about equivalent. That average amount, that 13 and a half years, is equivalent to the loss of approximately $385,000 in personal income. So what does House Bill 638 do? 638 is intended to add and build upon the Tim Cole Act and allow surviving spouses of wrongfully imprisoned persons to inherit the annuity upon the exoneree's death. And under the bill, the annuity benefit would terminate on the later date of the wrongfully convicted person or the date of the death of his or her spouse. So while Texas is a trailblazer in compensating persons who are wrongfully convicted, this provision falls short of fully recompensing exonerees and their families. And loss of income is one of the most significant difficulties faced by partners of prisoners. And this predicament is exacerbated by the fact that the effects of incarceration continue long after release. Specifically, for every year actually spent in prison, overall life expectancy decreases by 2 years. So the average sentence served by DNA exonerees, again, is about 13.5, and this equates to a nearly 30-year difference in the lifespan of an average person and that of an exoneree. So the expenses and financial strains of incarceration don't necessarily end, as I said earlier, upon the death of the wrongfully convicted person. And extending the annuity payments to the surviving spouse of the wrongfully convicted Texan upon their death is not inconsistent with the spirit of the Tim Cole Act, because Texas already acknowledges the importance of a family by allowing the heirs of a deceased person who is entitled to compensation to receive the lump sum, and also acknowledges child support language in the compensation guidelines codified within the state's wrongful imprisonment statutes. Texas will join the ranks of other states that allow this. And most importantly, members, as you all know, we receive through the employee retirement system an annuity after our service to the extent we've met certain hurdles, whether 4 years or, 4 terms or 6 terms. And for us, we are allowed to designate our surviving spouse or the guardian of our surviving minor children as a beneficiary. So the bill that you have before you today does not go that far in terms of designating designating a guardian of their surviving children, but I offer that up just as a point of reference to distinguish what the options that we have as legislators from those of exonerees. I also open up that discussion to members of the committee. If this is something you want to move forward with, we'd be happy to furnish a committee substitute that creates a parity between what we would be eligible for as legislators and that which exonerees would be eligible for. I simply offer that up so we can talk about it and we can work together as members of the committee and the exonerees and and this bill author, because I think we can come up with something good that'll make these families whole, these innocent Texans whole for being wrongfully imprisoned and for the system failing them. So I look forward to working with you on this bill or language that we could adapt to expand the annuity survivorship. And I'm very grateful that you've heard it. I'm also very grateful for the exonerees who are here today. You know, I've worked since 2009 with these innocent women and men. And I always like to remark to the committees that I'm before that despite the system failing them, and despite being innocent and wrongfully incarcerated in this state, they always come back every legislative session. Not necessarily for themselves, but for other innocent men and women that may be in jail or who have been recently exonerated, and I admire them for that. What I see is a generosity of spirit and hope, and I don't see bitterness, which is something surprised, because if I was locked away for 20, 25, 30 years, I might have a little bit of bitterness, but that's not what I sense when I work with exonerees. They're here to help and be part of the solution, and I'm grateful that they're here supporting the bill today.
Right. Any questions for Mr. Anchía?
Well,
Mr. Raymond?
first of all, Chairman Anchía, thank you very much for your work on this. It's admirable, and I very much appreciate that you took the lead when you did. And you're right, last session, those of us who were on this committee last session remember Michael Morton coming here and not being bitter, and certainly you have a right to be. But I was also thinking as you were laying your bill out, and I looked over there and saw my good friend Craig Island. But we miss being on this side of the podium. I was glad to see him in the audience, nonetheless. But I looked at Craig, and then I thought, wait a minute, I think our retirement, we have better options and benefits than they do, and they certainly went through a lot more hell than any of us chose to do by being in these positions. And so I'm glad you mentioned it, and I would encourage us members not only to pass this bill, but to amend it or do a committee substitute that would at least allow them what we as legislators are allowed when we retire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and most of the members of the committee were here when we passed the Tim Cole Act in 2009, and I was just the author, but it was you, the members of the legislature, who passed it overwhelmingly, and thank you for your kind words on that.
Mr. Stewart?
Mr. Anchía, I have a question basically regarding the extent of the liability of the taxpayers, kind of how long it goes on for. The way this is worded, the surviving spouse doesn't have to be the spouse who went through the period of incarceration with the member. It could be with the victim. It could be somebody who marries them in their old age and is younger, and then we're on the hook for the next 6 decades of their life. Is that the intent of this?
Yeah, the intent is to have a survivorship just like you might have a state representative. I know it's never seen, but where a state representative may get a little bit older and have a significantly younger spouse. I know that would be unprecedented in this body.
I haven't had anything like that, luckily.
But it does happen.
We're going to give you some time there, buddy.
Yeah.
And life happens to people, and life is especially hard for families when you have the head of household who's been wrongfully imprisoned and incarcerated, which results in many cases in families splitting apart. It's very, very sad to see, but and I'll let many of our exonerees who are here today speak to this issue, but it destroys families being sent away. And it is incredibly hard. So it is not uncommon for exonerees to have had a spouse when they first went to jail, and maybe having another spouse now. And again, we're just asking for some semblance of parity with what state legislators are entitled and privileged to receive.
I would have a hard time going for. I have multiple concerns. One is I've already seen people, and this has nothing to do with our pensions, but I've already seen people who in their older years get taken advantage of by younger people waiting for the money. But I'm more concerned about the taxpayers and the length of time that we're looking at paying an annuity out over.
Well, the fiscal note is really is very small, and I'll point members to it. It's $325,000 per year, so about $650,000 per biennium. I think it pales in comparison to some of the other things we spend money on here.
But I presume that you're trying to, I know there's a bill file for an innocence commission, and you're trying to create a bigger pool, as it were.
Well, I think the bigger pool exists whether or not we do anything. I mean, I'm sure there are innocent people in jail today. And I'm not trying to create a pool. The pool has been created by failures in our system. And I think we owe it, as anybody who cares about civil liberties, because this is the most egregious form of the state depriving someone of liberty, and in many cases, in the case of Tim Cole, life. And so I think it is our responsibility as legislators to do justice. And that's what we're here to do. We're designed to pass policies. We are here to pass policies that are just. And when people have been denied the most basic and fundamental civil liberties, where the state has deprived them of their freedom, I think it's incumbent upon us to act.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, Rafael, when you were talking about the spousal, the survival annuity, and I'm not there yet, I don't know, so I'm trying to get my head around it.
Sure.
But I think, are you talking about trying to line it up the same way that the state, as legislators, annuity would work? Because I think when you retire, and maybe former Representative Island could tell us, but
Star witness.
Yeah, star witness. If you designate your spouse, you can either take your whole annuity yourself, or you can designate it to your spouse, in which case it gets decreased. Does your bill line up? And that's kind of the way it is with a lot of annuities.
Sure.
There's a smaller portion. It decreases, including your own payment.
So the intent of this bill is simply expanded to allow the surviving spouse to receive the annuity.
The entire amount.
Yeah, and again, this is designed to begin a dialogue with the committee. If the committee thinks we should line it up with what members of the State House have to do, or members of the Senate and the elected class have to do.
When you brought it up, I'm just trying to get it all my ducks in a row here to understand it.
Yeah.
But that's not, at this point, that's not the way this bill is written.
No, it would be the full. It would be the full annuity payment.
Okay.
But to the extent we need to discount it and to bring it in line with what the elected class does, and again, the elected class suffers in the forms of having people having to campaign, having people say mean stuff about us. But it also doesn't line up. It pales in comparison with what exonerees have suffered. But I'm open to having those discussions.
You brought it up, so that's why I was trying to make sure that I get everything. I'm very simple-minded in putting everything in its own little silo.
I understand, as am I. No, I appreciate it.
Ms. Thompson. I think, Jody, are you talking about if a person decides under this particular plan, if they would take a lump sum as a surviving spouse, it would be a much smaller amount?
No, I think it's, as I understood it, that if you want to designate, if you and I retire, we can say whatever it is that we've accumulated in the annuity, then we get that. But if we want to designate it to continue with our spouse, then we have to take a smaller portion, a reduced amount, and then the spouse, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you said lump sum.
Other question?
I didn't mention lump sum. I didn't mention it.
Oh, I don't know about the lump sum.
But I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Thank you, members. Look forward to continuing this dialogue with all of you.
Mr. Anchía, one quick question for you, and that is,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
the fiscal, as you mentioned, is small, but it's there. And are you going to need to do a budget rider, appropriations rider for this?
Yeah, if this bill, if it is the sense of this committee that you want to move this bill, I would definitely do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And anyone.
Don't have much time.
I understand.
In fact, it might not be a bad idea to go ahead and do it anyway, just before. Is anyone you want to call as a witness to start?
I think many of the exonerees here are here, and I'd ask that they be brief in their comments, because I know that we want to be respectful of the committee's time, and please call them up.
Sure will. Thank you, Mr. Anchía. I'll call these just in the order that we have them here. We first have Mr. Charles Chapman. And if I mispronounce any names, I apologize, and be sure and correct me. Come on up, Ms. Chapman. You can bring Michelle up too. Oh, I'm sorry, Shadow? Oh, okay.
She's a little shadow.
Shadow, yeah.
Good morning. I want to thank the committee for allowing me just a couple of minutes. My name is Charles Chapman. I'm testifying today on my own behalf, even though I am an exoneree. I spent 27 years in prison, and I just got out in 2008 for a crime I didn't do.
And let me stop you, and if you would just state on the record that you're testifying in favor of the bill.
I'm testifying in favor of the bill. The bill addresses we being able to designate a spouse for beneficiary, but I'm not married, and I'm a single father. I'm trying to raise this little girl right, and I want to do things that benefit her. So I'm in favor of the bill as a stepping stone, because I want to be able to leave anything I have to my child. And thank y'all for your time. And she want to say hi. That's where you're going.
We appreciate you. Let me see if there's any questions for you. Any questions, members? But we do appreciate both of you all being here today, especially her. Our next witness is Billy Smith.
Good evening. My name is Billy Smith. I'm an exoneree from Dallas, Texas. And I was thanking Mr. Chairman and the committee for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you. It might look like a lot, but
You're for the bill.
and I'm for the bill. But before I start, if I might, I just introduce my wife, Kate Smith, who's here with me today. And
What's her name?
Emily K. Smith. In August 7, 1986, I was arrested, sentenced to life, aggravated, and I served 20 years. On July 7, I was released by DNA exoneration. When I was in prison, it was like, going through life locked in a secret nobody knew about but me, because I knew all the time that I was innocent. And if I might read this, and I can get my point out. I got older in age and spending so much time in prison that, I have to sometimes write things down. And I came here today with my wife, and we asked for your support and vote for House Bill 638, because we believe that it's reasonable and necessary. Even though I'm dressed in a suit today, I feel like I'm in an empty suit, because all the pieces of the puzzles are not yet together. I prayed a lot while I was in prison to be able to live, to get out, and to find a very special and wonderful wife, lady, that would have me. And that prayer was answered, as you can see. I did not pray to be confined in prison for 20 years for a crime I did not commit. And I did not pray to be able to not work and earn my own living for the 20 years I was incarcerated. Well, because of the 20 years I spent in prison, I don't have access to Social Security. I don't have access or a claim or a pension fund that I can rely on. But what I do have is a very generous annuity provided to me by this great state of Texas and its trend-setting legislatures. And me and my wife, we would like to thank you all for that. Any husband would want for his wife to be taken care of in his absence once we are called to leave this world. I'm no different than any of you with your spouses. We're all human. And there's just some things that we all just happen to be like. Or we have some resemblance. There's no denying that. It doesn't make a difference whether I went to prison for 20 years or for 20 days. I'm still married. I was still wrongfully convicted. I have a wife, and I want to take care of her. That's my job. I know that as a man. That's my job. You know, when I was in prison, I prayed for justice. And here today, I'm praying and I'm asking for grace. Because I'm in a grace period now. I don't know how long I got left to live, but I know that I lost 20 years of my life that I can never regain. And whatever time I have left, I want to spend it with this beautiful young lady here. And I just had a birthday just on Sunday. And she's a couple of weeks older than me, so you know who's running it. But I want to be able to spend this time with her. And I thank the legislatures here in Austin for affording me an opportunity through the compensation and annuity, affording me the opportunity to be comfortable and fair. You know, now that I'm free, I have access to things being fair. And so I'm just asking for your fairness. And I'm sure that, as I said, that all of you, any of you that are married, we're in the same semblance here. And I just hope that you will understand that what I'm asking for is something that I would think that you would ask for in your particular situation when your time comes to lead as well. And I want to thank you personally, and I would like to thank all of the Texas legislators for the Tim Cole Compensation Act and the annuity. I thank you for your promise to make my life comfortable and fair. I just want to emphasize that again. And I ask you for your support and your vote. And it would help me to keep my promise to my lovely wife. When I married her, I said I would take care of you until death do us part. And even after death, I hope that I'll be able to help her. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Smith? Hold on just a second. Any questions? Well, we do appreciate both of you all being here today, Mr. Smith. Thank you. Next, we have Johnny Lindsay. Johnny Lindsay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee. My name is Johnny Lindsay, and I am in support of Bill 638. First of all, I'd like to introduce my wife, Sharita Lindsay. I'd just like to say that, you know, it's one of my greatest fears and nightmares, and I'm pretty sure it's hers. She don't say much, but I wonder what would happen to her if something happened to me. I mean, she'd become accustomed to a lifestyle that I've given her. Not living above my means, but living to survive without having to struggle. Now, I spent 26 years in prison when all of this started. And no, I worked. Matter of fact, I was working the day that they say I committed the offense. And on my job, I had all of these benefits. I had all of these benefits. I had my spouses, my kids, that would be sought after if something should happen to me, I pass away. But after I got incarcerated, I lost all of that. And when I came out, I'm like starting a new life. And in starting a new life was to get myself situated. I got myself situated. And after I got situated, well, then I had to get somebody to help keep me grounded. And that's where my wife comes in. She have stepped in, she have been with me through thick and thin. We dated for 5 years before we got married. And we are going into our 2nd anniversary. And I think she deserves that. I mean, this is something that the state gave me that I wish to pass on to her. Not anybody else. I want her to have this because I feel she deserves it because she have had to put up with me. And I haven't been always the easiest person. I practically died while I was in prison. I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And it's just by God's grace I made it out. And even like now today, when I go to get a physical, I cannot get a physical without getting an MRI. And you can imagine what that costs, because who knows, the cancer may flare up again. I don't know. I could be here today and gone tomorrow, but I would love to be able to lay down each night and know if I don't wake up that my spouse, my wife, my other half of me will be taken care of without having to struggle, because I struggled enough to get to where I'm going. Like I said, I had a job and I had all these benefits. Okay, the state has been more than gracious to me. And all of the things that was taken from me haven't been replaced and may never can be replaced. But the things that can be replaced, I would just like to have them in place and put them in order. Because if I had kept on working and not went to prison, she would have gotten whatever I had. And that's all I'm saying. Just some things we can put back in place. And I do hope that you all support this bill, vote on it, and just set the record straight. And I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Any questions? We do appreciate you all being here as well.
All right, thank you.
And we then have Cornelius Dupree. Mr. Dupree.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us here today. I'm Cornelius Dupree. I'm here on behalf of Senate Bill 638.
And for the bill?
Yes, I'm for the bill. As you can see, and as you heard from the other exonerees, I also like to introduce my wife, Selma, like Selma, Alabama. But as you heard and as you can see, all of us exonerees, most of us, not all of us, we're 50 and over. And the reality of it is, we're all on our way out. And our wives are pretty much in that same ballpark. And so, with that being said, with the compensation in which you all have granted us, thank you all very much. It's very kind and generous. And we would like to, if we could, be able to leave that with our spouses, our wives. Because the reality of it is, if we die in the lifestyle in which we live right today, they would not be able to keep that up. That means that they would probably have to think about going back to work. And they would probably be too old. And to go and try to get an apartment and things like that, I wouldn't want that on my wife. I have a pretty nice home, pretty nice car. And again, I thank you all for it. I went to prison in 1979 at 20 years old. I spent 30 years in prison for a crime I did not commit. Jesus. I lost my mom, I lost my dad, I lost my 20s, I lost my 30s, I lost my 40s. It's gone. And I hurt right now just talking about it. And I know it's no amount of money that can repay that. But for the life I have left and who I spend it with, I want the best for my wife. I have no kids. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you. And let me just see if there's any questions for you. Any questions, members? And once again, we appreciate both of y'all being here. We have David Wiggins.
I'm a little nervous. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'm for the bill.
And your name? State your
name. My name is David Wiggins. I did 24 and a half years on a life sentence for raping a 14-year-old girl that I never met before. That's my wife, Rhonda Lacey Wiggins. I was married, and actually, I got an original divorce decree about 2 years before I got the acceptance from the Innocent Project for the DNA testing. But God has blessed me with another wife, and she, I was locked up in '88 all the way to 2012, and computers and all that. I mean, she has to do everything for me, basically hold my hand the whole way. And I got a beautiful grandson, little redhead, about 3 years old. You gotta see him, you gotta love him. And 3 great children through my marriage. They're grown, of course, and self-supporting, take care of themselves. But I don't feel like I really have a lot longer. I'm 50, and I went in when I was 24, got out when I was 48, diagnosed with hepatitis C. And I'm concerned about my wife's well-being because, and I'm not really just testifying on my behalf, but my wife and my family and other exonerees here and their wives. As you see, that we are, we ain't got like a bunch of young wives. So whatever y'all can do, well, I appreciate Timothy Colville. It's made my life better than what I've ever dreamed of, and I'm trying to make the best of it, but, I appreciate y'all very much. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Well, we appreciate you being here, and both of you, and any questions for Mr. Wiggins? Thank you again for being here. We have Johnny Pinchback. Once again, state your name and that you're for the bill.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Johnny Pinchback, and I am for the bill. Okay. I did 27 years in prison, wrongfully convicted of 2 rapes. I had nothing to do with it. Before that, I'd worked good jobs. I'd worked the post office. I did 6 years in the military, went in when they was pulling up out of Vietnam. My plans before I was railroaded was to go back in to retire. But I was railroaded. I didn't get a chance to do that, so that wiped that dream out, that plan. But anyway, I was sent to prison. And when I was sent to prison, I have this lovely wife over here. When I was sent to prison, she was there. She wasn't my wife then, but she was there with me on the day that I was sent to prison. And for that 27 years that I served in prison, she fully supported me. She fully supported me. She came to visit me. There was times when I felt like, you need to come here. You need to get here. I need to see you, because of the stress and me not knowing if I'm ever going to get out of here. So the letters, the support, the money, when I needed money, she would sacrifice to give me money. She would sacrifice, because she didn't have no good job. But she would sacrifice to see that I had in prison. She would sacrifice. So I'm not gonna make this long, and she's here. She's still here with me. I mean, everything hadn't been a bowl of cherries with her and I since I've been out, but that's the way it is, But we're still together, like I said, till death do us apart, And I done spent all my money, so she gonna need some money. She gonna need some, but it's only right though. I think she deserves it. All of the women, of the wives, of exonerees that, what we're going through but because we still go through some problems and changes and stuff, and they're there. They're there for us. Yeah, they tell us you need to get your butt somewhere, sit down, and they're there to help us and support us. And like I say, in this bill, I'm for this bill. And I thank y'all very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And your wife is Sandra, I guess, and she's going to be our next witness. So we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Sandra Pinchback.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Pinchback. I'm the husband of
No, you're the wife.
the wife of Johnny Pinchback. I'm here to support the HB638 bill. I'm just going to read a little bit. that I wrote. My journey begins 27 years ago when my husband, Johnny Pinchback, sentenced to life imprisonment for a crime he hadn't committed. And for myself, a life of imprisonment, my obligations and commitment to him and to us did not stop. When he was taken away from me, I became the sole provider, working countless hours to meet the needs of my children, my husband, as well as my own. Life was a struggle, but I did what I had to because I had to. There were times where I was physically and emotionally exhausted, but the urge to quit never entered my mind. I believed him and in him, and this is where my courage came from. There were times when I felt robbed of our dreams together, robbed of our aspiration, robbed of a certain future, robbed of spending time together, robbed of sharing a simple kiss. But at all costs, I continue to stand by the man that I have so much love, respect, and honor and gratitude. Those were not easy times. They were, in fact, the most difficult I had ever experienced. Maintaining a home, paying bills, again, meeting the needs of my family in the free world, but also meeting the needs of my husband, who was unable to step in to relieve the majority of the stress. I felt, as husbands often do, it was on me to prove that I had what it took to be a true champion to a cause I clearly couldn't understand. My husband, Johnny Pinchback, just didn't do time. I did the same time with him in completely different surrounding. What is the essence of the rule of law? Johnny Pinchback is being compensated for his life that was stolen, a life deprived. It is on an equal plane. We both experienced that same time and deprived, each with its own set of grueling circumstances beyond each of our control. Does the obligation end? When does the unpredictable occur? Or should I be robbed once again for the time we both did, for a crime my husband did not commit? I urge the passage of this bill to ensure that the life I maintain, and not just me, but for those who have stood unrelentlessly by their husband or loved ones beyond those walls, are never overlooked, nor their ambition sacrifices. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pinchback. Any questions for you? Appreciate you being here. We have Selma Dupree. We met Selma a moment ago, but if you'll come up, Ms. Dupree.
Good afternoon. Grateful to be here this afternoon. My name is Selma Dupree. I am the wife of Cornelius Dupree, who spent 30 years in prison for a crime that he did not commit. I was with Mr. Dupree 20 of those 30 years.
And I want to make clear
and I am in favor of
House I hate to keep harassing you on that, okay. But the record needs to reflect that.
Yes, I am in favor of House Bill 638. The reason I'm here today is because we are addressing the issue of the surviving spouses receiving the compensation that our husbands or our spouses now receive. And the reason I'm here is because I really want to speak on that, not just on my behalf, but on behalf of the other spouses as well. When you really think about a person that loses all their 20s, 30s, 40s, the majority of these men got out after right around the age of 50. Anyone normally works on a job for 30 years, those people work and they retire after 30 years, or whichever comes first. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that we are compensated for. I did hear the representative make the statement about marrying younger women or whatever the case may be. But I did have a job and I was working. Had a very influential job that I was working on. But when my husband came home, he didn't know how to do anything. He couldn't drive. He couldn't go anywhere. He had to report. He had to pay his fees. He was on a monitor. So all of that responsibility fell on me. And it was just really hard trying to work, trying to make sure that he made his appointments. And what he would always tell me is, when I get my money, you won't have to work. That's a hard thing when you're used to working and taking care of yourself. And that's what I was doing prior to him coming home. As well as these other ladies, we were all working ladies. We were not sitting around. We were working and taking care of what we needed to take care of. And we've been so fortunate and so blessed, and we thank you very much for your compensation package. It has been a big help. But if I would have rather stayed working. But because my husband needed me and our husbands needed us, we stopped our jobs to try to make life easier for them. It wasn't their fault that they had to spend the time that they spent for crimes they did not commit because of the mistakes that the criminal justice system made. And as a result of that, I do ask you to please support this bill.
We appreciate you being here. Any questions for Mr. Dupree? Thank you again. And Corey Session.
Good evening. My name is Corey Session. I'm in favor of the bill. My brother was Timothy Cole, who the Compensation Act is named after. Many years ago, Representative Smithy, I worked here at the Capitol for a man called the mighty Garfield Thompson. And Mr. Thompson said, "Corey, I've got a couple of more sessions, then I'm going to call it quits. And if anything happens to me, I'll be able to take care of Miss Dorothy. She'll be taken care of." This bill, as Representative said, would be a parody of that. When I look at these gentlemen, it would be music to their ears to have this bill pass. But you're looking at a symphony, because each one of these gentlemen have been an instrument of change in our criminal justice system. Just this past September, Representative Anchía, Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and Governor Perry at the time were all in Lubbock, where we unveiled a statue to my brother. And we proved on that day, Senator Wendy Davis was there as well, we proved on that day, in a place in the political area where we were talking about battleground Texas. We showed on that day that we found common ground at a place that our family holds as hallowed ground. These gentlemen, their spouses, have worked so much harder. They have been here each session working on other pieces of legislation. They'll be back down here when the human trafficking bill comes up to testify on this. They have stories that should be heard. And I would just say that I am my brother's keeper, just as you are. Whether they are here in the air-conditioned comfort of the State House, or whether they were like these gentlemen, languishing in the sweltering heat of the big house. I appreciate you voting on this bill favorably. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you being here as well. Oh, and then Ed Heimlich, sir.
I'm Ed Heimlich. I'm an exoneree. I'm here to testify for the bill, even though I will not benefit from the bill, and even though I have helped all these people to secure their compensation while I have not received any of my own. My exoneration came in 1999, and it was not by DNA, But DNA is not the only means by which a person can be exonerated. My innocence was obvious from the beginning. There was no probable cause. There was a contract between me and the alleged victim. I was the victim. The alleged victim was the perpetrator. I was within the terms of the contract. He was not. I did nothing illegal, but he went to the district attorney's office, and I don't know what kind of strings he had, but he got them to steal my money and accuse me of theft. It was impossible. I was the owner of the property. I never had possession, management, or control of it. The bank did, and then the state did. And to cover it up, they manipulate the law, manipulate the trial, deprive me of due process of law to secure a conviction. The appellate court said what I'd said all along. I was the owner of the property. I did not do anything wrong. The alleged victim was the perpetrator of the crime, and the state aided and abetted as was the perpetrator of the crime. Now, my exoneration came in 1999, and I filed suit in 2000. At that time, the Wrongful Imprisonment Act only allowed $50,000 regardless of how much time you spent in prison. So I went to work that year with Representative Dutton and Senator Ellis to secure the major rewrite to the Wrongful Imprisonment Act, Compensation Act. I have been in here every session since 2000, fighting for what our founders said 179 years ago yesterday, are rights of inestimable value, priceless. And they put them in Article 1 of our Bill of Rights, which are supposed to be inviolate, inalienable, forever exempt from the powers of government. But today they are simply suggestions that a judge and a prosecutor can disregard to secure a conviction of an innocent man and destroy a business and a career. We have a lot of attorneys on the public payroll. They all take an oath to preserve, protect, and defend our Constitution and our laws. But when they can't defeat the facts, they go into court and they use every trick in the book and they violate all the rules of court and laws of procedure to defeat the Constitution and to defeat the law so that they can claim a win on their belt. I have a history of litigation here that you can see at my website, informed.org, where I got a final judgment under the rewrite of the Wrongful Imprisonment Act. And then, in 2008, a justice, without jurisdiction to do so, decides that the legislature did not grant me permission to sue the state. Yes, the AG said that the state was liable, the state had a legal obligation to me, but the state is now the king with the divine right to rule, with total disregard for our Constitution and laws. So why do we even have them? So I am carrying on the battle of 1836. Every legislative session. Can't do it by force of arms. I do my best to do it by persuasion. And so I hope that I might persuade you this legislative session to honor your oath of office, to preserve, protect, and defend our Constitution, its intent and purpose for being the inalienable rights of the individual. Among those is a right to restitution when they are a victim of government malfeasance. So please visit informed.org and honorquest.org. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Hunley? Well, we do appreciate you being here, Mr. Hunley.
Thank you.
Members, we also have 2 affirmations from individuals who want to be shown for the bill but not testify. Sarah Powell with the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, and also James Waller here on behalf of himself, and we appreciate you being here. And one reason we read these names is because I know some witnesses want to support the bill by being here but choose not to testify, and there's nothing wrong with that. We appreciate your being here.
Say something.
Well, you can come up and testify, but I'm going to have to make you a testifying witness. No, I do have to record it. But and the other thing I'm going to ask you to do is that when you finish, if you will sign in, file a witness affirmation form. Okay. We want everybody to testify that wants to testify. Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. Will you give me permission to change your designation from a non-testifying witness to a testifying witness?
Go ahead and change it right now.
Okay, all right, we'll do that. So, got that out of the way. I want to protect this bill as much as we can in case there is a point of order. And so, go ahead and do what the other witnesses did. Tell us who you are and your position then.
Okay, my name is James D. Waller. I am for Bill 638. The reason why encouraged me to get up and speak because I did 10 years in prison, 11 months and 3 days, and 14 years on parole as a registered sex offender. My wife passed away back in 2001, working on a case. She passed away, her and my unborn child, 2 days before my court hearing. The whole time that I was in prison, my sister was the one that took care of me all that time. And my sister the one that's saving me right now. So, and another thing I want to just hit on a little bit, he was saying about the young girls and stuff and junk. I don't think none of us gonna marry no young girls where they can get no benefit for the next 60 years. I don't think that's gonna happen. I would like for the bill to be passed because I don't want to leave my sister the way I left her when I went to prison, because she took care of my mother the whole time I was down there. So I want to be able to get this bill here passed, Bill 638, so that when I'm gone, because I'm 58 years old right now, and the Bible said only God gives you 70 years, so that tells you how many years I got left. Even though we may go over there, but God said except He give us 70 years. So that means someone's got 9 years, someone's got less. But the thing is, I don't want my sister to have to be waiting to move out the house that I done moved her into. Now, they have to be looking for somebody else to live because she only 1 year younger than me. But she was the one that took care of me because I don't know if I'm going to get married again. I might and I might not. Because I was married, tried to do the right thing. My wife was killed in an automobile accident. And the reason why I didn't want to marry another wife when she got killed, because I didn't want no other wife to be on parole the way I was, because I was still on parole when she passed away. I only got exonerated in 2007 and everything. So one reason why I didn't get married again, I didn't want no wife to be on parole. God sent a parole officer every week. I couldn't date women with kids. I couldn't go to basketball game. I couldn't go to football game. Texas took all that away from me. Texas took away my kids, because I can't have no now. I'd be too old. They took away my grandkids, because I can't have no grandkids, because of what they did for arresting me in 1982 for aggravated sex abuse of a 14-year-old boy. And the boy got on the witness stand and said I was 5'8", and I was convicted. So Texas took away all my grandkids and all my kids. That's what Texas did. So the only thing I'm asking Texas to do now, not for me, to pass a bill that my sister would be taken care of. And I thank y'all, and may God bless y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Waller. Any questions? Well, thank you very much for being here. So is there anyone else here who wishes to testify for or against or on the bill? If not, Mr. Anchía, if you want to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I regret that that Representative Schofield had to leave because after having all these exonerees testify and seeing their wives, I have to agree with them. They did really marry some hot young women.
Well, if they don't quit talking about how old their wives are, they may not need this.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I frankly think this hearing just affirmed their impeccable taste and choices, frankly. And what you heard today was not tricksters or hucksters or people trying to take advantage of people with money. What you heard about today was love, family, and freedom. That's what this bill is about. People who are denied of freedom that have it again. They're in love, they're married, they've started families, and they want to take care of their families. So I look forward to working with you, Representative Lovenberg, Clardy, the entire committee, and let's come up with something that meets the needs and supports families. And with that, I close.
Well, we appreciate you. Any other questions for Mr. Anchía? Thank you for being here, and thanks for assembling. I know it was hard to get everybody here at the same time, but we appreciate all of y'all making the effort to be here. And I can promise you this: we're going to give the bill the attention it deserves, and try to get something worked out on this thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
And if so, members, if there's no objection, the chair would leave House Bill 638 pending at this time. Thank you all very much.